Hello, this video is going to be about connective tissue. We have four types of tissue that we've been discussing. The four types of tissue are the only types of tissue we have in our body. So we have discovered that epithelial tissues are coverings or linings. Connective tissue is for support. And then we will get on to muscle tissue and neural tissue next. So connective tissue is very interesting because it's offering support. And when we say support, well, that support needs to work to connect all of the systems and all of the different parts of your body. Okay, so when we talk about connective tissue, we are going to talk about how the energy in your muscle is transferred to the movement of bones in movement. Okay, so how do you move? You contract your muscles. Well, contracting your muscles on their own would do nothing. They have to be connected to something else. Thus, the term they came up with, connective tissue. Okay, so connective tissue is interesting to talk about because it's something I think we don't think much about, but yet we do have, I believe, more knowledge about it than we might realize. One of the things that I wanted to ask you all is bone a living tissue? So when we talk about tissues and we talk about something in our body that we think might not be alive, are bones alive? I would love to have all of your answers. This is always a fun part in class because when we talk about our bones alive, most people don't see bones as being living. But then I usually ask a child or a student, is there anybody in here that has ever had a broken bone? And sure enough, somebody always seems to have had a broken bone. And then my question is it still broken? And for those of you that have current broken bones, you know that it will heal over time. Bones are living tissue, okay? But there's something different about bone than the epithelial tissue, okay? So the bone has some part of it that's not living. All right, so what do we say that you need to eat lots of or make sure you get plenty of to have strong bones? Pretty much everybody understands that calcium is what we need to have strong bones. Okay. Now it's interesting because we have been told for so long that milk is a good source of calcium, and milk is a good source of calcium if you could absorb it all. But we can't absorb all of the calcium in milk. We can only absorb some of the calcium in milk. And when we look at something like broccoli, we actually get much more absorbable calcium. Okay, so calcium is much more absorbable in natural forms than it is in things that are produced by animals, like milk. So, bones. Bones are definitely living tissue. They definitely heal. Okay, they definitely need nutrients that your body is going to consume with your diet. Okay, and there are better choices for nutrition, some better than others. Okay, so connective tissue and what we just talked about with bone, when we think about calcium, there's actually other things in there as well: calcium, phosphorus, and collagen. And these are all going to be the non-living parts of bone. So that's going to be something that connective tissue has in common. All of the connective tissue has non-living parts, and we call this the matrix. Okay, so connective tissue, you are going to write this down. Connective tissue, these are living cells in a non-living matrix. Okay, so non-living matrix for bone, well, I just told you it's calcium, phosphorus, and collagen. Okay, so for loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue, we're going to find collagen is the non-living matrix of those tissues. Okay, so for cartilage, we have a matrix there as well. Elastic cartilage has collagen fibers, whereas hyaline cartilage doesn't, depending on its function. So, where it is in the body and what it's expected to do dictates what types of materials are used to have them have the strength that they need and so forth. Okay, so the first tissue that we are going to write down, this is supposed to be A. I'll show you here B, dense connective tissue is letter B, but somehow my areolar or loose connective tissue lost its A. I apologize. Okay, but areolar is the first connective tissue that we're going to write in our notebook. Again, it is known as loose connective tissue, and it was named loose connective tissue because it doesn't need to be as strong as the dense connective tissue. Okay, so we do have a matrix here. We have a part of this non-living, and that part that's non-living is going to be the collagen and elastin proteins. And those collagen and elastin proteins are going to work to make the tissue strong but flexible. So I bet you could guess which part makes it flexible versus the other part which makes it strong. Okay, so we do try to name things in anatomy. I say we like I had something to do with it. I had nothing to do with it. Humans have tried to name things in order to help us understand their function. Okay, so loose connective tissue, it's going to be more flexible, it is going to be strong. Okay, there is lots of water in loose connective tissue, and of course, water is non-living matrix. Okay, again, we're going to have water stored in certain places. It is non-living. Okay, so loose connective tissue is going to be something that is flexible and strong. It's going to hold your skin to your body. It's going to hold your nerves and blood vessels in place. Okay, and loose connective tissue is very um, predominant throughout the body because it is holding things in place. Okay. All right, so that was A. And then B, we're going to talk about dense connective tissue. Dense connective tissue is going to be parallel collagen fibers. So I hope you remember what the word parallel means. I'm going to go ahead and pick a contrasting color here. Maybe green would be good. Okay. And with that green, I want you to notice the parallel fibers. Now, hopefully you understand what the word parallel means. Parallel is two lines going next to each other. And sure enough, down here, I can see this fiber here. Okay, and this fiber here is going to be parallel with these fibers under here, even though they have moved according to this slide. Okay, now something I need you to remember about slides. These prepared slides are actual tissue that somebody in a lab sliced extremely thin. They then put them on a slide and they put stain on top of them so that way we can see the tissue, we can see the fibers in the tissue. And I need you to remember that those stains that they put on there are going to absorb into the cell contents or the fiber contents differently. So this is why we can see the differences now, because if you were to look at this without stain, it would basically be transparent or clear. Okay, so sure enough, I have these parallel fibers, parallel meaning run right next to each other, and in those parallel fibers, you're going to see those little purple dots, and these little purple dots that we see here, these are the nuclei, the living cells that are going to be in this non-living matrix. Okay, so when I look at this again, I now can see that I have plenty of collagen fibers. Again, the collagen fibers are the ones that run parallel to one another this way. Okay, and the cells themselves are going to be these purple spots in the tissue. Okay, and I'm sorry, I brought up these were made in a lab because when the lab technician or whoever he was that was making this slide, when he put this tissue on the slide, part of it came apart, and that's why we see the white underneath. So I sometimes use the analogy that it's a little bit like serving enchiladas. If you're going to serve somebody 3 enchiladas, when you use the spatula, if you have a big enough spatula, if you pick up 3 enchiladas and you go to put them on the plate, one of them might move away from the other two, making a little space where you could see the plate in between the two enchiladas. Okay, so this right here is just space where the tissue has come apart and we see the light of the microscope coming through the backside. Okay. Okay, so dense connective tissue, super important. This is the strongest connective tissue in your body. And when we think about where you need your strength, think about doing a squat, think about pushing or doing push-ups, think about lifting heavy things, okay? Your biggest muscles are going to have to be attached to your skeleton in order to transfer that energy from your muscle contracting to your skeleton moving. Okay, so tendons and ligaments are the two types of tissue, or the two names that we give the connective tissue that holds the bones together as well as holds the muscles to the bone. All right, so tendons and ligaments are how we transfer energy from our muscles to our bones, giving us movement. That is going to conclude this section of connective tissue. There will be a second section. Please look for that, covering the rest of the connective tissues.